Over the past few years, I want to say probably 85% of my clients are relocating here from another state or maybe some other area in Florida, but for the most part, they are relocating from another state. So I've come across a lot of questions that I get asked frequently. I'm heading over to a showing in Viera, so I'm gonna go over the most frequently asked questions, the whole process, what to expect when you're purchasing a home, especially if you're relocating and you can't be there every step of the way. That's where I come in. So let's get started. So usually what happens is someone watches a video and then they reach out to me either by calling, texting, emailing, and we set up a time that works for both of us to go over why they're moving, when they're moving, what they're looking for, and I answer their questions. So that's usually how the first initial step starts. And then I ask them, when are you coming to visit? So sometimes I have clients that aren't able to come visit at all. Some of them have been here before in the past, maybe lived here once upon a time, or they are getting orders for the military and they can't get here and they're used to that, going new places and relying on a real estate agent to help them. So it just depends on your scenario, but the client lets me know when they're visiting, whether that's when they're going to be looking at houses to actually buy, they're ready to go, or they're just exploring the area, and then we can figure out if they're also going to be here when we do these showings or if it's going to be more virtual showings. And then I put it on the calendar, block off those days. A few days before your trip, we'll plan out showings. If you're coming just to visit and you're not ready to buy yet, I don't love to schedule showings. You have to realize a lot of these are home occupied. They're leaving their homes to allow you in. But other cases, I'll send you to some open houses or we'll go look at new construction because that could take a year. And that actually could work for your timeline if you're a year out, because then at least in a year you can go under contract and build your dream home and so forth. So usually a few days before we schedule out. Sometimes when people are visiting, I just grab coffee with them and go over the area. I give them my food guide. I go over any forms that are important to understand and go from there. If you're ready to go when you come to visit, then we'll go into showings and schedule them and look at homes. Sometimes people look at 4 homes and they find the perfect one, and sometimes it can take weeks, sometimes it can take months. It just depends on your preferences, what you like, what area you like, price range, a lot of factors. I always tell people there's no rush. A lot of people feel this urgency. Of course, when you're relocating, you don't want to be stuck in a rental. You don't want to be, but a lot of times there are short-term rentals you can find, because I think sometimes people feel like they settle on a home, especially certain homes here in Florida. You don't want to be settling for a home, especially if it has issues that you are going to have high insurance because of that. So there's no rush on the timeline, but I understand urgency too, especially if you have family and you can find what you're looking for, then go for it. Now, going back to before showings, you might have heard on the news about a few months ago about commissions and how they're being wiped away, and it can scare people. The news uses scare tactics to make you watch. That's how they get views. I have a video that I initially sent people after our first call. I go over on the first call too of how I get paid, how the buyer agreements work, but haven't had any issues with clients feeling comfortable signing them after they talk with me. So I think the biggest thing to know is if you are going with a new construction, 99% of the builders will pay me to represent you. And if you are going resale, 99% of this are already offering compensation for me. And if not, it can absolutely just be negotiated into the offer. And this is something that I am full disclosure every step of the way. Sometimes I can be negative Nancy when I'm looking at homes because there's certain things that people need to know about when they're purchasing homes in Florida. So sometimes I feel like I'm a Debbie Downer, but I am full disclosure when you're working with me. And I always tell people, go check out my Google reviews. I take pride in those. I don't want to make anyone feel like I am taking advantage of them or lying to them. So I am super honest with all of that. So we'll go over that on your first call, and then we'll set up the showings and appointments and so forth. Okay, so now fast forward, we've got the showings, you found the home you love, and what's next? So really what's next is I am gonna go to my office and and I am going to pull what is called comps, so comparable properties. We want to make sure you're not overpaying for a home, right? I'm going to send you properties, and sometimes I tell clients, I'm like, hey, it's priced pretty well. It's been on the market for a bit. It's probably just low right now, so let's still try to negotiate the price. Sometimes the price of the home that's listed is wildly overpriced, and I have to have that talk with you that we're going to have to offer significantly less based off comps. They might go for it, they might not. A lot of times people will ask me, what is going on in this market? Is it a buyer's market? It depends where you're looking. For example, Palm Bay is absolutely a buyer's market. However, Viera and Merritt Island is still a seller's market. Just depends really, and it's so subjective on the house. Some houses get multiple offers, some houses sit for 6 months, and it's all on price and location. So it's really going to be, we're going to look at homes and then we're going to research them, and I'll let you know if I think it's priced well or if I think it's priced pretty bad. And then after we decide on a good offer price, you will already be pre-approved at this point. You need to get pre-approved before we go out in showings, unless you're a cash buyer, of course. A lot of people will say, I'm pre-approved for $850,000. My lender says, great, let's look at $850,000 houses. And then they learn the payment on that. And they're like, oh no, I don't want to pay that even though I can. So understanding your payment and then reflecting your purchase price off that is super important. So we don't want to be looking at $850,000 homes, even though you might be approved for it, or you might think you're pre-approved for it. You want to know what the payment is on that. So you will already be in discussions with lenders, local lenders, or maybe you have a lender you've worked with in the past prior to us going out for showings. So next we're going to go over the offer process, but real quick, if you're new here, my name is Rachel Langley. I'm a real estate agent here in the Space Coast. I cover the whole Space Coast, and my team and I help clients every day move to the Space Coast. I absolutely love it here. I moved here a few years ago, so it's a passion of mine to help other families move to this area because I know how life-changing it can be to move to Florida in general, especially here because it's such a great area to live. So if you're thinking about buying here, if you know you're going to be purchasing here, make sure you reach out. My information is on the screen right here because I got your back when it comes to moving to the Space Coast. So a big question that comes up, especially usually on the first call, is, am I even going to get insurance? And the answer is yes, it just depends on how much. Okay, so let me rewind because I don't want to scare you. So there are certain homes out there. So for example, I just put a house under contract with a buyer moving here, and he initially didn't want to look beachside. And essentially what happened is we found a house that had everything insurance wants, looks for, and the insurance is absolutely reasonable. A little under $1 million house, beachside, but it has everything that insurance looks for, and the insurance is probably going to be about $5,000 a year. Now, a beachside home for that price range that's an amazing insurance rate. Now, I know a lot of people are not in that position to do that, so let's talk about what I see out in the field, which is usually more like the $450,000 to $800,000 range. Depending on where you're looking, Merritt Island's going to be a little bit more expensive because it's still the barrier island. And then if you're looking in Viera or inland Melbourne, it's going to be lower because you're west of US 1, you're a lot more protected from storm surge. But essentially what insurance likes and how you're going to get the lowest rate is going to be newer roof, less than 10 years old, less than 15 years old. Anything over 15 years old gets pricey. And then you want to make sure that the roof is tied down. Most 1990s plus have this. 1970s homes have this too. It just depends. That will be found out during inspections. They want a window, some protection for the windows and doors for wind if a hurricane comes. So there are many different options for that. A lot of homes have them. Some homes do not, but essentially the doors and windows need to either be impact resistant, which is the best and hardest to find. But if not, then they need to have panels to be put up before a hurricane, or they can have like accordion shutters or the roll down ones. So there's lots of options. But for example, I just put a house under contract. I made sure the buyer was fully aware that the windows and doors had no protection and the insurance is going to be higher. But as soon as you close, do that, and then it can get readjusted. So it just depends. If you find the right house but it doesn't have everything and you're willing to add it after, you can have the insurance readjusted. Insurance is absolutely possible. I can give you some examples of homes that the insurance premiums that I've been seeing in the past few months. Sold a wood frame home in Melbourne, and that insurance rate was about $3,300 a year. That was sold for about $550,000 and had a pool. That's another thing. Sometimes people find the perfect home inland and it's wood frame and it just works for them. But if you can find the perfect home that is concrete block, that is absolutely preferred, and it's better for insurance as well. Concrete block. I'll give you an example of my homes. I have two houses. One's an investment property that we first bought here as a starter home to make sure we like the area. We bought it for $315,000, 1978 home, but has all the insurance credits. And that one is $1,700 a year, and that's with a rental. And then our other home is a 1979 too. It's a pool home. The only thing it's missing is that it doesn't have a third nail for the reinforcements for the roof. The premium is $2,800 a year, and that's a pool home. It's under $500,000, and we plan to get the roof reinforced with straps or new clips. Essentially, it's just the roof reinforcement, and that's about $2,000. So we just figured the savings at the moment were only about $300 a year. So we just have decided not to do it yet, but I will be doing that soon, especially because it's safety too. So insurance, absolutely possible. It just depends on the home, and I will help guide you to the right home or give you full disclosure so that you can fix it up after and make it more affordable insurance. Okay, so let's go back to the offer. All right, so what's going to happen once we decide on the price and if you want any closing credits? Understanding closing costs is something you have to have a conversation with your lender. Same thing with what you were going to be putting down as a down payment. But once we have all that information, then I'm going to write up the offer. What's called an as-is contract in Florida. I know that's really confusing. Even when I moved here from working in Rhode Island as a real estate agent, I was like, why does it say as is on this? But essentially the contract just means that the seller has the right to refuse to make any repairs, but they can make repairs. You can still request repairs during your inspection period. So essentially the offer will have the purchase price, what you're putting down as a down payment. That can range anywhere from $5,000 to $30,000. It just absolutely depends on your price range. It's going to have details on what closing date you'd like to pick, on how soon they have to reply or by what date and time. Usually it's anywhere from 24 hours. It's going to have information on the cost breakdowns, who pays what. It's going to have information on the title company, on your inspection period, which is usually anywhere from 7 to 10 days. If you're not going to be local, I can set that all up for you. I send you some reputable companies, but just research them and pick who you'd like to work with. Sometimes it's picked by whoever is available first, but I have to make sure I give the options for liability reasons. Nonetheless, you have your inspection period, and say it's 7 days. Within that 7 days, you get your inspections done. That's when you get your insurance reports. We send them off to insurance agents to see your quotes, so you're comfortable with them before we move on past the inspection period, or we know if there needs to be any repairs done for you to obtain insurance. And then we'll go over the inspection report and decide if you would like to request any repairs or credits based off what's on the inspection report. If you decide to back up during that time, then you will cancel the contract and your deposit is refundable during that time. But if you become in agreement with the seller during inspections, then we will move on and go to the next steps. And the deposit is no longer refundable unless for some reason you cannot meet your mortgage contingency, which is typically 30 days. Some sellers like it to be 3 weeks. It's just something that can be negotiated, but typically it's 30 days. During that time, if you are financing, then you will be ordering an appraisal to make sure that it's valued correctly. I would say about 80% of homes appraised within the last year. Some have not. For whatever reasons, we can go back and have the appraiser look at other comps and bring it up. Sometimes we have to negotiate the price down, so it just depends on the situation, but most of the time I can send you comps and we're pretty good with that. You will also need to have a survey for your mortgage. So if you're buying cash, you don't need to get a survey. Sometimes the seller has a recent survey, which is helpful. Sometimes they don't. That is an extra expense you will have to do before closing because your lender will need that to satisfy the mortgage. If for some reason you can't satisfy your mortgage, maybe you lost your job, maybe something happened with your health, your deposit is refundable during that time. If it's past, that's when it gets iffy because you're past your mortgage contingency. The deposit technically is supposed to go back to the seller in that time, but you should know well before then if there's any issues. After the mortgage contingencies, sometimes you close right away. I have had 3-week closings with mortgages. I've had 30 days, but usually it's anywhere from 30 to 45 days closing. So if you're not going to be here, sometimes I have clients that close remotely. Then I'll do the final walkthrough with you, and then you'll sign remotely the day before closing with a mobile notary, and you will ship it off, and then you'll close the next day. So yeah, I'll do the final walkthrough, make sure the house is in the same condition as when you came and visited or during inspections, make sure it didn't sit on fire the day before. That's never happened. to me. But we have to go and make sure. We have to make sure the water's on, make sure that they removed all their personal items unless it for some reason involved in the sale. But yeah, and then you'll close on the home. And whether you're in person, you come to the walkthrough with me, or I can help you every step of the way of that. And yeah, that's pretty much the process to understand when you're purchasing a home in Florida in the Space Coast working with me. So I hope this was really helpful for you. I know I help a lot of first-time home buyers that don't know the process. I also help a lot of clients that they're coming from a different state. It's totally different. Rhode Island, we used attorneys. Here we use title companies. Or maybe you just haven't bought a home in many years. So this should be helpful for you to understand the process. Of course, reach out if you ever have any questions. Reach out if you are looking to move here, because I got your back. My information is on the screen right here. You can call, text me, email me, day or night. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And thanks so much for watching. I'm Rachel Langley, and I'll see you on the next one.